Hi again, everybody, and thank you again for joining me, all you liquor connoisseurs. If you wonder what this weird light is behind me, that is this phenomenon we call sunshine that we haven't had a lot of actually peeking through here in the great room, so my apologies if that's a bit distracting. Today I wanted to explore a liquor that we haven't got a chance to talk about at all, that being cognac, or cognac, depending on your enunciation. To be quite frank, it's not my favorite liquor in the world. Not necessarily adverse to it, but it just kind of isn't my cup of tea on the palate. But that doesn't mean it doesn't justify a review and a tasting, so here we are. Today I wanted to discuss kind of three of the very, very common cognacs you'll see when you're out at bars, at restaurants. Very, very common, hugely popular, wide sellers. Those three being Courvoisier, Hennessy, and Remy Martin. The Courvoisier and the Hennessy are actually the VS, or the very special, kind of the normal cognacs, kind of base level. And this is actually a VSOP, which is a very special or superior old pale. We'll get into that in a little bit. So basically, if you're asking yourself, what the heck is cognac? Basically, it's one of those things, it's kind of like Scotch or bourbon. Where those two are just whiskeys and they're just, the names are dependent on where they're made and how they're derived. It's just what cognac is. Cognac is brandy. It's brandy that is sourced from, the grapes are sourced from a town in France called Cognac. In order to be a cognac, it has to be made with specific grapes. I'm not going to bore you with the details of those. And it's got to be twice distilled brandy in copper pot stills. So there are very, very specific things about it. But again, it's just brandy from Cognac, France. It is derived from basically producing a very kind of bitter, thin, acidic, and some people have characterized it as a undrinkable white wine. That's the base spirit of cognac. They then age it in oak casks from the Limousin forest, which is a specific region, a specific wooded area in France. Matter of fact, that's where they also store the... the Limousin forest, on a side note, is where they store the whiskey for Crown Royal XO and Cask 16. We've talked about those. So anyways, they store the cognac, or at the time, it's basically just a white wine, in these Limousin forest oak casks for at least 2 years. If it's not 2 years, it's not cognac. And that base level 2-year cognac is before it's actually called cognac, it's at about 70% alcohol. Then over time, from the casks and the oxygen, it starts evaporating at a rate of about 3% per year. So when it's bottled, when it's cast at 70%. Then over time, it gets to about 40%, and that's when they pull it and start bottling it. So it's just basically aged gross white wine in oak casks from Limousin forest. Boom. So right off the shelf, you have the VS, or the very special or superior. These two. The next level is the VSOP, or like I said, very special, old superior, or pale. Then the next level up is XO, which is extra old. Starting in 2016, actually, to be considered an XO, you're going to have to be at least 10 years old. As of now, they're anywhere between 6 and 10 years old. So, just a little fun fact for you there. They're very, very old. They've kind of had a little bit of a renaissance here over the last, say, 10 to 15 years. China's new rich actually are huge fans of cognac. They've really grown in popularity here in the States, kind of with that hip-hop community. It's kind of been glamorized. For whatever reason, it's been adopted and gained some pretty nice popularity and success here in North America. But in China's new rich, It is wildly popular in drinking heavily. 2% of all of cognac in the world produced is consumed in France, where they produce this stuff. 98% of it is exported. The French don't even like the stuff. It's one of those odd things that happens from time to time. They produce it, they like it, or they don't like it much, but it's extremely profitable. So that's good for them, I guess. It's like I said, it's really grown a lot in popularity. There's actually concerns because they're having an issue with sourcing the casks and finding the amount of grapes to not only produce this fine cognac, but all the wine that they actually prefer drinking. So on that note, let's get right to it. We will start off with Courvoisier. This is actually a newer bottle that I haven't opened up, and I'll read you a quick little cool story in the back. It says, legend has it that Napoleon held Emmanuel Courvoisier's cognac in such high esteem that he took with him hundreds of bottles to enjoy during his years in exile. This reserve became known as La Cognac de Napoleon, a description still proudly borne today on all Courvoisier cognac. So that's a cool story. And this has a nice little, we always talk about packaging. Packaging on cognac, it kind of all tends to be somewhat similar. The Remy bottle is like this, except it's like the smoky or like a matte finish. But they all kind of have like a wine or champagne kind of look to them, which is fitting because that's what they are more or less. But they are, in terms of price, once you get into like the Remy, King Louis, we're talking of all the spirits, fine single malt scotches and fine extra old cognacs are probably the very, very top end. Very, very unique to the nose. And I figured it was fitting to use the Glencairns on this because they are, by their nature, a very fruity, a very floral spirit. So I thought it would be a good idea to probably go Glencairn so we do get the appreciation on this glass. I always try to do that with Hennessy for some reason. As you can see, these two are fresh bottles. And I figured since I am opening up my new bar here in the next couple weeks, might as well pop into them. So when I have guests over, they're ready to roll. Love that sound. All right, let's do this. First, let's let these guys breathe a little bit. Color-wise, it's whiskey. Color-wise, it's whiskey. Almost identical. Now, right off the bat, let's see if you guys can see this. A little closer, maybe. They have legs. Very, very heavy legs, for that matter. See lime there around there. Which is a good thing, and that makes sense for an aged spirit like these. Yeah, and you know what? I think the reason that I'm not naturally drawn to these is because I'm not a wine guy. So it's going to kind of be an uphill battle for me from the start. But I got to say, I haven't drank a lot of cognac in the last couple of years. So who knows? Maybe this will be a nice little renaissance for me. And Courvoisier. Excuse the pregnant pause. It's about what I remember. Floral, astringent. Grape is through the entire process, you're getting grape. A little more pleasant than I recall in terms of the finish. Overall, it's a pretty enjoyable experience. Again, not my cup of tea necessarily, but I would say that I've gained some appreciation for it, I would say, over the last couple years. Let me cleanse the palate. Before I forget, price point on these guys are both, this is a liter bottle, but if you were to go 750 milliliters on both, you know, you're looking between, I don't know, 30 and 40 bucks. Very affordable. This one's a little higher end, so we're not going to taste this one yet because my cognac selection is a little thin, so I don't want to crack into everything quite yet. So excuse me on that. Okay, Hennessy. Now, whoa. Right off the bat, I'm hit with something a little unique there. I'm getting like a... Sorry, I'm a little bit of a rookie when it comes to cognac tasting. I'm getting almost like a mustier smell. Yeah. Almost like a... And this sounds awful, but it almost has like a wet towel kind of smell to it. Outside of, you know, the obvious grapiness. All right, on the palate. You know what? They're quite different. They're quite different. For being very standard, you know, mid-shelf cognacs, produced in the exact same part of the country in very, very similar ways and fashions. They're very, very similar. But at the same time, they're very different. They have a lot of unique characteristics. This one is not as much wine as Hennessy or Courvoisier is. Hennessy's much more... It's almost much more whiskey or much more... It just doesn't have that overwhelming wininess that the Courvoisier has. Let me taste that one more time. A little more. Yeah, I gotta say, I have a little bit more of an appreciation than I have before in the past with these spirits. So I'm glad I got a chance to review these with you guys again because, like I said, I haven't drank them in a while. So I do look forward to cracking into the Remy VSOP. And I will do that from the bar with you guys here within a month or so. Grades, I will give the Courvoisier a 6.5. And I'll give the Hennessy maybe a 6. Even though I don't typically like the winey, grapey flavor, there was something I slightly preferred in the Courvoisier. So thank you all very much for Cognac 101, and I hope to talk to you soon. Until next time, glasses up.